Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Avonic webinar. As you can see, not from our normal studio, which has something to do with COVID and a cold. And I don't have the virus, but I do need to stay in my own house, which means that I'm not able to go into the office. So that's why I'm hosting this webinar from a little bit of a different location. The good thing, it's a little bit of a international situation today. We're actually connected to our office in the Netherlands, to my house in the Netherlands, but also to Denmark, which I'm very happy and excited about. Casper Skaarhoj, the CEO from Skaarhoj. Casper, welcome and thank you for joining our webinar.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's a big pleasure to be on your webinar today.
Okay, like I said, kind of an international example of communication between various offices and locations. So that's quite exciting. Casper, how's the last couple of months been for Skaarhoj in this very special situation?
It's actually been really good. We have seen numerous records over the summer of the good type for our business. So we are very thankful for that because that's definitely not the case for everyone. So it's really good and comforting. And even though the virus is a big pain for all of us in this world, then we feel we are ready to face what is coming in this winter season. But let's hope it's not getting too bad. Other than that, it's been a nice summer, late summer in Denmark, and my team is doing a really fantastic job moving into new development and also pushing out products every week. So we are quite happy.
Exciting times, right? Yeah, I can relate. We can relate to that. Sometimes it feels you feel a little bad about saying that. Yes, actually, the business is very, very good. So I can definitely relate to that. Casper, we'll come back to you in just a couple of minutes. I'll do a brief introduction, and then I'm looking forward to learn more about the integration and the products that you guys are working on. So we'll get back to you in a couple of minutes. Just before we get started today, we're using the Demio platform, which is the webinar platform actually that we are using today. The Demio platform, on the right side, you'll see the Q&A or the chat window. Please feel free to put all your questions in the chat window. We have a team from Avonic and Skaarhoj on the chat today, and they're happy to answer any of your questions. If there's any questions that we cannot answer immediately, of course, we're going to get back to you on that very soon. Just a little bit about Avonic and our company. We're a Dutch-based company, founded about 13 years ago. We are a manufacturer of PTZ cameras and fixed cameras, and we're in control of product design, manufacturing, warehousing, sales, and support. And we really focus on the Pro AV installation market. So everywhere where a specialized integrator is required or where multiple instances are being deployed, that's kind of our key market. Currently, we do distribution in over 30 countries in every continent. So there is a reseller or distributor near you for sure. And if you want to find them, they're on our website, avonic.eu. Today, so during this webinar, which is a bit different than normally. Normally, I'm really used to just being in our studio behind the green screen, and now it's a bit different. But we're going to be talking about applications and use cases focused on building streaming solutions and fixed installations. We're going to be talking about the CM70, so our PTZ camera lineup, and the REC200, which is our streamer encoder. And then we're going to be talking about the main topic of today's webinar, which is control options. And I'm excited about having the live demo from Casper at Skaarhoj to really show you how everything integrates with each other. And then I'll come back to you with some takeaway points just to summarize today's session. Just speaking about applications, right? There's tons of applications for PTZ cameras and controllers out there. They vary from like the high-end boardroom type installations where there's still some manual control, high-profile events. Here you're actually seeing a picture of one of the events that we did with one of our customers, which is the Croatian EU presidency. But also think about things like visual radio installations where they want to have manual control when somebody's coming into the studio and they have an artist or a band that's performing. Churches, house of worship in any form is a good market for PTZ cameras, but also for manual control. There's a lot of predefined sequences where we can use control systems, but there's always a need for manual control. Same thing goes for webinar studios, which is the picture in the middle. Yes, you can script everything, but still you want to have some flexibility. So there's a lot of different applications. One of the biggest growing markets for us right now is education. On the bottom right, you're seeing an image of actually the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. This is an installation that we've done over the last couple of months together with one of our valued partners here in the Netherlands. But in education, there is a big push for camera solutions, for lecture capture, for all kinds of ways to actually capture content. So also that's a big part of our market, and definitely a big part of a market that is rapidly growing actually. If we move on to the products we have for this market is in January of this year, we launched our fully new CM70 series. This is a series of, in total, 5 products that are very similar in features, but the difference is the lens that is on the camera. This allows for mixed environments where you're actually using multiple cameras at different angles and different distances to the subject that you actually want to record, while still maintaining a similar design, so the same design. So the people in the room are actually not seeing that these are different cameras. They're all the same, and they look the same, which is nice from a design perspective. They're able to blend in, and also they're available in white and black. One of the main things with our cameras is that we've looked at, like, so what do our installers really need? And they need flexibility. That's what we built in by giving a lot of simultaneous outputs. So these cameras can do SDI, HDMI, and IP output while at the same time still outputting USB 2.0, for instance. This is a main topic to just make sure that cameras are flexible and you can use them in a lot of different applications and purposes. Also, one of the things in the market right now is the move to IP. And yes, there's a lot of proprietary IP protocols. There's NDI and there's other things, but we have low latency IP streaming on H.264 and H.265. These protocols have been around for a very long time in the broadcast industry. They're proven technology, and they allow for low latency applications. So we have a couple of features that are specifically designed for low latency, and one of that is an optimized RTSP mode, which works together with dedicated software, for instance. Other highlight with this product line is that it has ONVIF compatibility, which automatically makes it compatible with Bosch Dicentis systems and the CCS 1000. There's a high-speed pen tilt mode, which basically means is that when you transition from preset A to preset B, you can control the camera in a way that it just goes very fast from A to B, which is a bit different from some of the broadcast type PTZ cameras because they're mainly focused on the slow movements. You can do that with our cameras as well, but we do have the high speed mode, which allows it to get from one preset to the other preset a lot faster. We have added features like Tolly Light, which is IP controllable. So from, for instance, a Skaarhoj controller, because it controls over IP, you can actually control our Tolly Light, for instance. And there's also things as improved low light performance and the multiple control options, which include RS-232, 485, UVC, and Visca over IP. Shortly, we will also be launching an API to actually control the streaming part of the camera through IP as well, which will be launched somewhere in October-November time range. And all these cameras are supported and provided with 3 years of warranty. So just a quick overview on that. The other device, which is interesting in combination with the Skaarhoj controller, is the live streamer encoder, so our AV-REC200. This is a device that's often being used in things like house of worship, but also all types of applications where streaming is being used. It's a single channel H.264, H.265 encoder, so it actually does both. And the neat thing about it is it has HDMI and 3G SDI, which is a big differentiator in today's marketplace. There's a lot of support for various streaming protocols and a web-based interface for control, as well as front panel control and also IP control, which makes it compatible with things like Crestron, AMX, Needs, all those type of control systems. And it's also compatible with major streaming services and also with YouTube and Facebook Live. That's a little bit about the REC200. Of course, if you build these things, you need more than just the camera and more than just the encoder. You need a good way to mount the equipment as well. We have a whole range of mounts that are available for our cameras. And here you're seeing the wall mount and the actual truss mount, which is not provided with a clamp, but you can actually add any clamp that is on the market to that and make a very easy truss mounting as well. Before I hand it over to Casper, I do want to touch about a couple of things when you select cameras, right? So what's important? The room lighting, studio lighting is different from traditional Pro AV applications. The distance, of course, you select based on the image you want to make, the maximum and minimum zoom image, and then the distance from the installation location to the actual subject. Of course, connectivity. I'm going to get back to that in a little bit more detail for sure. Things like IP standards and control. There's a whole lot of information that you can find from a lot of different manufacturers. But just remember that we use the standard open protocols H.264 and H.265. Of course, interoperability. At Avonic, we really focus on technology partners to make sure that our products work with other elements that you select, because we are not the full solution provider. We provide a building block and you need to add to the system. So you want to make sure that there's a smooth integration of all these items. And of course the audio, make sure that audio and streaming application is taken care of in a proper way. Make sure that there's solutions for clipping, for instance. If the audio is too loud, then especially when you start streaming, you're going to get issues. But I think the main thing here is to look at the connectivity and the control options, right? So we have RS-232, 485, and IP control in all of our products, especially the PTZ cameras. And the control option that you want for your system just 100% depends on the application and the customer needs, right? Depending on where it is, if you think about an auditorium in a school, there's a teacher walking in, you want it to be very simple. They need a magic button, right? They need the magic button that makes it just all works. So it really depends what you select based on the end user of the system. In the streaming side of the business and the temporary installations and the event-driven business, we're typically making more use of a control panel, right, which gives you a lot of flexibility. You can steer the cameras to any location. We have the AV-CON300 for that, but there's also limitations to that product, right? Because what if you want to have multiple brands of cameras? Well, we're Avonic, we kind of only support our own cameras. And what if you need to integrate the controller fully within your system? Well, let's say there's third-party software and there's the controller. You need to get bidirectional feedback and you need to be able to know what the controller is doing at a certain time to really make sure that there's only one captain on the ship. And what if you would want to automate maybe like a simple REC200 from your PTZ controller because you don't have the budget to add another control system? These are questions that we get on a regular basis. And it's also the reason why we reached out to Skaarhoj. It's the reason why we have this technology partnership. Just to give you an example, right? In a house of worship situation, this is a pretty typical setup, video mixer, audio system, cameras, IP controller, but the differentiator here is that there's also a system controller in place. And this system controller is typically the captain on the ship, so you would need to know what the controller is doing to be able to actually see what's going on in the system. This is the example for a house of worship installation, but also for conferencing. This is a main topic. Here you kind of have the same situation. So the installation is not very different other than that there's delegate units from, for instance, Bosch or Televic or all these kind of companies. You've got some remote sources. And this happens to be an all IP installation, but doesn't really matter as long as there's IP control that you're using. Multiple cameras, a control system. In this situation, in this picture, you're seeing a Crestron controller. So how do you let everything interact with each other if there is a controller which basically only is able to control cameras directly, like our own AV-CON300 IP, but also many other controllers on the market, then you need something more advanced. And that something more advanced would be a Skaarhoj controller. Now, I'm certainly not the topic expert on Skaarhoj products. I do know that we've tested a few of the Skaarhoj products and we really like them. But yeah, if you want somebody to talk about Skaarhoj controllers, then you need to get to the source. So Casper, without further ado, I do want to hand it over to you. And again, I'm very happy that you're joining us today, because I don't think there's anybody better that can explain us more about you guys' products.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Yes, we do universal broadcast controllers. So quite often we find ourselves being the glue between different pieces of equipment. And as you mentioned yourself, it could be Avonic cameras and an REC200, bringing those two together into the same unit to create a user-friendly experience. But the slide that you are showing right now deserves a little bit of mention. So identify, if you look at the different color sections on this slide, you'll see that we have products in a PTC control category, and they range from small to large, basically. So if you get a glimpse of the big PTC controller, we call it PTC Extreme. That is for typically broadcast users who need instant access to presets, camera selection, all the settings in the cameras, and at the same time being able to zoom with the right hand and or the left hand and use the right hand with the joystick and so on. So there's a lot of professional features on that one. Then what we'll be looking at today is the PTC Fly. It's the one that I'll demonstrate in a moment. And it is a much different controller. It has fewer knobs and buttons, and that's great for those kind of users who would be a little intimidated by a huge broadcast panel. Despite of the size, we are still able to provide all the same features if you want to, but the question is if you do. And this is where configurability comes into the picture, because you only want to give people access to the things that they really should control, and then leave the rest over to settings that has been done by someone else. In the middle between these two, we have a product like the PTC Pro here, which is, let's say, our medium-sized PTC controller. And it's, again, different from the PTC Fly in that it has more direct access to such as preset recall and camera selector being separate on that controller over the PTC Fly. But you'll know what I'm talking about in a moment. But that was only PTC control. So just to give you guys a glimpse of what else is in our product portfolio, we do surfaces for vision mixing. So there we're talking about video switches for live production. Then we have products which are mainly targeted at broadcast camera control when you do what we call shading, adjusting the colors of a whole set of cameras for live show. And that's the blue section. And then we have utility products. We have a lot of REC units, buttons, knobs, even joysticks in a REC unit form factor. And one of these are, interestingly enough, a combination of a PTC Fly and the live vision mixing controller we call LiveFly. So there in one unit, you have on the left side control of your video switcher, on the right side control of your PTC camera. And that's again one thing that we only very rarely see other manufacturers target. So camera manufacturers often don't make video switches at the same time. And our products that integrate these two aspects are doing it really cleverly with support for a whole range of vision mixing products and a whole range of camera products as well. Then we have replay and audio as well to supplement the other categories, which are the main ones. So that's kind of the walkthrough of our universal broadcast controller lineup.
Okay. Well, I know you guys we're doing the vision mixing control, but it's good to see the whole lineup together. I think it's very interesting to be able to control both the vision mixer and the PTZ cameras actually through one and the same universal interface, and kind of has the same look and feel, because that's something we see customers struggle with. They have like a controller and then a vision mixer, and everything is kind of slightly different, and this would allow them to do everything within the same product. So very interesting.
I think so, and I also see it's becoming more and more popular doing this because you have crews of fewer people. You don't always have a dedicated guy for vision mixing and a dedicated guy for PDC control. But even some of these products are really developed in a collaboration with our customers. So we are the kind of company who tend to listen when we get suggestions from the field, and we love to put together products which are spot on with the issues and challenges that people are fighting out there when they do live shows. So never hesitate to come to Skaarhoj with an idea that you think we could solve.
Okay. Can you show us a little bit more about the integration of the CM71, because you have a CM71 on your table, I believe.
Yep, that is true. Yeah, let's do that. And so the product that I'll show integrated with the PDC camera here is the LiveFly. And if I may come back to a point you made a little earlier today, there are many ways to control your cameras, and sometimes you need a needs panel on the wall to record presets and do a number of, turn on the camera, record preset number one, and stuff like that. Other times you need more delicate control, and Skaarhoj is really about giving you precise control of the camera-specific things. So I tell you, with your cameras, we have actually gone through the actual values that it contains. So when we set a shutter speed or an iris value on your camera, it comes right out of the list of values in your camera. And that's a big point about how we do integrations. We try to go really close and specific with the hardware, because that creates as close as we get to a, let's say, native experience, really. So even though we have third-party controllers, we try not to compromise on what you can do. What you often find is that you get the lowest common denominator experience out of a third-party controller, because they kind of need to do everything, right? But we really try to go specific, and that's what I'll show you now. Okay, so you want to go into a demonstration here with me? Then let's see what we can do. Now, this is the LiveFly, PDC Fly controller from Skaarhoj, and you'll notice immediately that you have a lot of information given by the nice displays that comes with every knob and button on the surface. And if I press the button here, which is like a shift key, you can see that I'm shifting into camera preset recall. And if I press once again, I'm toggling back to camera selection. Now I have only one camera today, but already seeing this function, you can see how powerful our controllers can be in terms of sharing functionality on the available buttons. So, and that's because of the OLED displays. We almost never label buttons and knobs on our controllers, except that we put in a OLED display with graphical capability to show you the text label or even an icon for the buttons and knobs on the controller. So that's a very typical Skaarhoj signature technology feature you saw right there. These buttons are quite clever, because actually by pressing the sides, you can see in the display that the numbers are changing. So we can actually record presets 6 up to 10, and then further from 11 up to 15 by simply paging using the buttons. And that's because the buttons, they have a sensitive, they detect presses on the edges. So it's like a miniature joystick. That's another signature technology from Skaarhoj. Let's try to operate the camera. So obviously I have joystick control here, so I can move the camera around with the joystick. And to see that, let me just bring up the camera here. So, and now I'm turning the joystick, so you can see I'm actually zooming in, and I'm turning the other direction to zoom out once again. Obviously, when I move the joystick right, I'm panning to the right side, and move it to the left, I pan to the left side. So, okay, that's kind of basic PDC operation from a joystick. There's a knob on the top. If you press that one, we typically code it to do a home preset recall. And let's just go back to the camera. So if I try that, you will see the camera is making a quick move back to its home position, which is hard-coded into the Avonic camera. And then if I go to my preset selection down here, you see all my presets. I can recall also preset number 1, 2, and 3. Let's try that. Actually, this position, I can store it in preset number 1 by pressing and holding this button. And then we will be able to come back to this position when I have tried to recall some of these presets. So by pressing these buttons, I'm recalling presets, and I'm now showing you the output from the camera. So I'm pressing button number 3 now to recall preset 3, and then I'm recalling preset number 2. And I guess here you see some of the speedy preset recall Stephen is talking about, which brings you in a few seconds to the particular target of your preset. Is that true, Stephen, or did you intend to talk about some even quicker preset recall when you mentioned that feature?
Well, there's yes, we've just added, and I don't know if that's running on your version yet, but we did add a high speed pan tilt and zoom mode, which was really focused on applications in city councils and large congress applications where they just want to go
Right.
from one preset to another preset as fast as possible. Also, we're going to be adding the functionality of actually being able to configure the pan and tilt speed in the camera, so you can actually define that in a number of steps.
Mm-hmm.
And this will, it all depends on the application that you would be running. So right now there's just a normal mode and a high speed mode, but you're going to have some more flexibility to configure that in the camera.
To me, that's very good news. First of all, we probably don't have the latest firmware version on this camera, or I wouldn't know. So let's assume we don't. But the moment you have Visca control commands for using the high-speed modes, Skaarhoj controllers are designed in a way so we can easily add that command and integrate it into the controller by a web interface where we just
Yeah.
assign it to the buttons where we want it. So that's some of the power you see in the way we do these third-party controllers, by paying specific attention to the features that make Avonic cameras special and provides a lot of value for your customers there. And also when you mentioned the sorry, Stephen?
Yeah, what I wanted to add is in that way, I think what makes a technology partnership between Skaarhoj and Avonic also very logical is we also just try to listen very carefully to what our customers say they're missing in certain applications, and then you'll end up adding features which some of the bigger companies out there simply cannot add, or there's not enough applications for
Mm-hmm.
them. So for us, sometimes like going into this specific conferencing type high speed mode, for instance, for us that's very logical to do. So it's all based on customer
Mm-hmm.
feedback. So in that way,
Yeah,
Avonic and Skaarhoj are very similar.
yeah. If I may go back to the demonstration of the controller, then I think we have been looking at a camera selection, preset selection down here, and I want to pay some attention to the section up here. So what is this really? It says exposure mode in the display. If I turn this knob, it goes to manual mode, and this is where you see the iris value from the camera is appearing. I'm sure we can see it if we go to the camera. I'm now turning the knob once again. You can see the camera is responding to this by opening and closing the iris, and the particular value from the camera is read out here in these displays. Now again, if I use this button down here and press the upper edge, you can see I'm cycling through. Now I'm in white balance auto mode. I can go to manual mode. And if I go once again, you see brightness, saturation, contrast, sharpness, which are features we find in your camera. Focus mode here. And now you see we also have some speed limitation functions here that we could use. And specifically the one called speed limit PDC that you see right here. I have set it down a little bit so that when I give the joystick full swing, then the camera won't move extremely fast from one side to the other. So I set it down to 37%. Unfortunately, the way this speed control works on most cameras, and including this one at the moment, is by simply reducing how big or how fast the speed are we sending to the camera. So, Stephen, when you're talking about adding speed control in the camera, it sounds to me like really good news in terms of having like the maximum speed range, just having a lower high limit, which gives us more fine-grained speed steps. And what that often translates into could be better pans when you have like far distance subjects and so on. But I don't know, maybe you want to tell us about what this speed control you added was intended to do.
Well, it's one of those things when you recall presets, then it is a fixed setting. But right now, if you recall a preset without using a controller, so if you use, for instance, a needs panel, then it would just always go into the same speed. So you can't control that other than normal mode or high speed mode. And now we're going to be adding, so
Brilliant.
between normal or slow, we're going to be adding multiple steps where you can actually make it more suitable for your application. So that's what we're doing.
For the preset
So it is
recall,
going to be,
right?
yeah, so preset recall functionality, yes. But again, like if there's specific things that would add more value to the cameras, then we can certainly look into that. And in that way, we're similar to what you guys do as an approach. So hopefully that explains what we're doing.
Absolutely. So, and a preset speed parameter really that would give you everything from the high speed preset recall for conferences to a slow speed preset recall that would be more fitting for a live streamed signal. Those things would also be parameters we would want to put into the controller here so that we could set it up for the, or give people access to both modes on these panels.
Yeah.
So the last things that you find on the panel here is stuff like brightness control and IP settings and so on, but that's not so specific to the camera. So let's not spend so much time on that. It's just to say that there's of course layers and layers that we can add, but we can also choose not to do it. And I could imagine situations where you totally want to take away the exposure mode because you may not need to let people use manual exposure, and you could argue the same about white balance, but you might instead on the front row of the controller put in features like speed control of preset recall so that such a parameter would be immediately available to people if it makes sense to them. And this is all done by configuration. It's something you do in a web interface. But to make sure that everybody understands, when you purchase a Skaarhoj controller, it comes with a default configuration. So it basically means that out of the box, it's going to hook up with the Avonic camera you have already. All you need to do is to tell its IP address to the controller, and you're good to go. There's something working out of the box from us.
Yeah. I think one point very much appreciated is the fact that in some installations you just want to have something which is foolproof, which always works, and where you just kind of give the user a couple of buttons and that's it. And that's the flexibility that you guys bring. We have our own controller, but it opens up everything, and sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes there are multiple brands of cameras. Sometimes you want to control something else, or sometimes you just want to limit the functionality. And that's why we're excited about working with you guys.
That's what we do. That's what we do in our products. Yes.
Okay. Casper, just very quickly, can you kind of show us or just tell us the difference a little bit between because you have two controllers on your desk. One is the Fly, the one that we were looking at. When would you advise customers to make the step to the bigger controller?
Yes, I think I'll just bring it into the view of my top view camera here so people can see this controller and the features it has. So it's not powered on, obviously, but the main difference is that you have just more buttons here. So for instance, this section called Select gives you buttons, which is usually recalling a preset, and the row of buttons down here are selecting cameras. So camera selection, preset recall. And this is buttons directly giving you access to menu options up here. So pressing this one, you have access to the exposure settings that we also saw on the PTZ Fly, white balance settings, color settings, and so on. Now, notice that these buttons are they have printed labels on them. So this is where you have some inflexibility, if you will. The printed labels means that it's difficult to use that button for something else. Well, in fact, you can reconfigure it as easily as anything else. It's just that the button still says exposure, right? And that's what you see on the PTZ Fly. You have a display to take care of this. So there, no matter what the buttons and knobs are doing, you always see their title, their function in the displays. So that inflexibility in the PTZ Pro over here is a disadvantage, but on the other side, it's also an advantage that gives you a reasonably priced PTZ controller with buttons which are now specifically labeled for PDC control, which really doesn't bother a whole lot of people because, after all, they always need a button for exposure. They always need buttons numbered 1 to 10 for preset recall. So
Yeah.
it's that kind of compromise that actually does make a whole lot of sense, because for people buying that for PDC control, it's totally perfect. Um, so in short, PDC Pro, immediate direct access to more things because there are more buttons, but also you're locked down a little bit more in how flexibly you can set up the controller, and
Yeah.
that's where you need to figure out your compromise.
Yeah. I do think that customers typically are thinking, well, I need to get the one with all the buttons because then I can control everything, which probably is correct with a lot of other smaller PTZ controllers. But actually, in the PTZ Fly, you're able to basically control everything, and also to lock certain functionality out, which I think is very interesting for the Pro AV installation market.
Yes.
So yeah. Okay. Well, Casper, I do want to thank you for today. I do appreciate that you spent the time with me to join us during our webinar. I think it was clear, and I think we have a good understanding about the PTZ controllers that you have. And there's more products, so definitely if anybody wants any information, they should take a look at your website. For now, I want to thank you. And yeah, again, thanks for joining today.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thanks for having us on the show.
Thank you. From Denmark, in the neighborhood, the vicinity of Copenhagen, Casper from Skaarhoj. We do appreciate when our technology partners make time to join us during our webinars. And if you have any questions about the Skaarhoj products, feel free to shoot them to us or to Skaarhoj directly. We'll help you and get in touch with them. And also, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A or in the chat window. And we have, again, we have a team from Avonic and Skaarhoj that are here to help you and answer these questions. Just a couple of takeaway points that I wanted to clarify before we finalize this webinar. So PTZ controllers are used in a wide range of applications, and we talked about, I think, over 12 different applications, but there is a good chance that this is only a very small part of the applications out there, so there's definitely more. The CM40, the 40 series, which is our entry-level series, and the 70 series are both IP controllable, and also the REC200 encoder is ideal for streaming, conferencing, and streaming studio setups. Skaarhoj offers a range of vendor-independent PTZ controllers that scale alongside your needs. Good thing is if you're using brand A and brand Avonic, you can just combine that in one single controller. There's also no support issues because you're buying it from an independent company which is building controllers for multiple brands. And also you have the bi-directional control for integration with external systems such as Crestron, Needs, Q, and more of these systems. REC200 control is possible to be done via the Skaarhoj controllers. I don't believe it's completely finalized yet, but if you have any projects that would need any integration between the Skaarhoj controllers and the REC200, let us know, and I'm sure we'll get that fixed. And remember, Skaarhoj and Avonic are technology partners. For us, the technology partnerships doesn't only mean this type of marketing activities that you do. They're primarily focused into working together and being committed to support for customers that either are Skaarhoj customers using our cameras that call us and say, hey, something's not working. We help them, but vice versa. Also, Skaarhoj has any customers that are using Avonic cameras, they will help these customers as well. So that is the trick and the main topic for any technology partnership as far as we are concerned. Remember, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A. We'll also leave the session open for a little bit after we're done. The recording will also be made available to all of you that joined today, and the product videos are available via our YouTube channel. So these are more focused on individual products that we have. You can contact your local reseller or distributor by going to our website, www.avonic.eu. And for Skaarhoj products, please visit skaarhoj.com.